Hi everyone, welcome to the Rangers Review. We're here, it's not a match day, but we have some big topics to discuss. Chris Jack, Rangers throwing their support behind Philippe Clement, Patrick Stewart, the new CEO, during an extensive sit-down, also discussing, amongst other topics, an external review that Rangers have taken in amongst the football department, plans for the January transfer window, a lot of discussion about how Rangers have got to where they are and how they plan to get out of it. Not with quick fixes. Loads and loads to discuss. What I will say first and foremost is there's a full transcript of the entire conversation, the entire presentation of what Patrick Stewart had to say, which you can read in the comments below. But before we talk about the actual event, Chris, and the kind of tone of the conversation, let's speak about the headline, which is that the club are back in Philippe Clement. It's no big surprise. This extends to before Patrick Stewart coming into the building. He did say, there was a lot of context around it, he did say that there's no cast iron guarantees. Every staff member's performance is going to be judged, and Philippe Clement can't be absent from that. But he is backing Clement rather than taking what he branded the easy decision to, I guess, make the popular decision at the moment, which would be to sack Clement, who's 15 points behind Celtic at time of recording. That's a big step for him to make, and what did you kind of, I guess, take from his context as to why he's arrived at that decision and why he's made a kind of public declaration, which is something that football clubs do few and far between in relation to managers?
I think people might see it as a dreaded vote of confidence. Other people will see it as confidence in what Rangers clearly feel is a long-term plan. Clement has spoken about this being a long-term plan, but you can only plan for a long term if the here and now is acceptable. For a number of Rangers fans, the here and now is not acceptable. We've seen it on the show, we've seen it on all the social media that we do. We know what the kind of mood of not all Rangers fans. You can't say that everyone is against Philippe Clement. You can't say that everyone wants him to no longer be the Rangers manager. I think you can say there is a sizable number of Rangers fans who believe the end of the road has come for him. This will not be the news, this will not be the update that they were hoping for. I think it will be the update that they were perhaps expecting. I don't think that there's not really been... We've stood in this stadium a number of times over the course of the season. We've been at away games. We've seen how poor Rangers have been at times. There's never been anything out of this club to suggest that the manager is going to lose his job. So I don't think it comes as a massive surprise. I think it will come as a disappointment to a number of fans. But the decision has been made. Patrick Stewart, as you say, has outlined the reasons behind that. Fraser Thornton and the board are fully behind that decision as well. Time will tell if it proves to be the right one or not.
Yeah, it's bold, and obviously Patrick Stewart did say that no cast iron guarantee was the phrase. Rangers away form has been horrendous. I think it's 13 points from 33, and that was again reiterated throughout the conversation that can't continue. They're trying to address that, look at the issues as to why. But I guess this is something that supporters have been speaking about from the outside as well. Everyone knows that this Rangers team can be really good on a one-off occasion. The question is there the template here for sustained success and consistency away from home? That's where everything seems to come to a head. But that's obviously what the Rangers board feels the right decision to take at the moment. Now, I think they will know, and Patrick Stewart again reiterated this throughout the conversation. They will know that that's not the popular decision at the moment. It puts, you could argue, added pressure. I guess there's added pressure if they don't come out and back the manager, or if they do. What you would say, and we'll touch on this in regards to the external football review as well, is that short-termism isn't going to get Rangers out of this issue, but equally if you're looking long-term, it's that delicate balance of you've got to make sure you're on the right path, and you've got to be seeing enough short-term to I guess, guarantee that buy-in. The slight difference is, and this came into the conversation in regards to transfer as well, this isn't a manager building a squad. Patrick Stewart continually reiterated, as has been in a variety of articles throughout the website over recent months, that Rangers' issue has been going from manager to manager to manager. So while they are backing Clement in this instance, it's not as if they're giving him X number of million to spend on just his players. It feels like the focus is on creating a better structure around the manager, because at some point Clement will not be the manager, and Rangers' issue has been bouncing around so many ideas dependent on who's in the dugout over the last 4 seasons.
I think it takes the immediate question out of the equation.
Yeah.
Clement has been asked about it over the last wee while. after big game defeats or big game draws, the question of his future has come up. It has been on the agenda. I think this takes it off the table. If the worst was to happen here tomorrow and St Johnstone pick up a result, there's no point in having the question of do you fear for your future, because he said it was 200% on Thursday night. I think he can probably add a couple of percentage points onto that now that this backing has been made public. Whether that's enough for the Rangers fans or not, time will tell. Ultimately, I don't think it will be. I think their groundswell of opinion, it's not going to be changed by beating St Johnstone or putting together a sustained run of results. It has to be more than that. It was interesting, Patrick Stewart, the games that he pointed out as reasons to be encouraged. He mentioned Nice, he mentioned Spurs, he mentioned the Celtic win here, mentioned the cup final. Those games aren't the problem for this side. Those games aren't the problem for Clement. You touched on the away record. That's where the frustration has grown. That's where the anger has gone. It's not the fact that Rangers just missing out in those in those fine margins, not quite being able to get over the line against Spurs, not being able to win the cup final that they should have done. Yes, that's a sense of anger for them, but nowhere near as much as what we've seen in the last couple of weeks. Dundee, Hibs, Motherwell, St Mirren. That's where this anger comes from, and that's where the doubt over Clement has come from. So I do get the point he was trying to make, but I think you're almost missing it, because I say that's not the real issue with this manager and with this side right now.
Because I guess for every win over Celtic, there's a defeat at St Mirren, and for the draw against Spurs, there's a draw against Motherwell or Hibs or Dundee as well. Been a few of them. To be fair to Patrick Stewart, he's fronted up. He's had an open conversation about not just the immediate situation, but the long-term situation as well. And this is something that's really important, and I think we come back a lot to when you're talking about why are Rangers here where they are now. It's not just obviously the football on the pitch. Clement has to take responsibility for that, and I think there's been times where his comments about financial gulfs that Rangers are trying to make up has missed the point of the fact that Rangers have a lot more money than these teams that they go and play away from home. But to take the kind of current football out of it at the moment, the topic of an external football review, I think, is the right decision. Again, the fact that Patrick Stewart is coming in as an executive CEO and Fraser Thornton as a non-executive chairman speaks to that theoretical shift of power away from those with a financial stake in Rangers, because we've seen where those decisions have ultimately ended up. The last three chairmen before Fraser Thornton had a very different relationship in terms of financially to the club. Patrick Stewart saying that he's bringing in external people to do a full review of the football department, and I guess these are all the things that will work away in the background. The results maybe won't be immediate of that, but I don't think there's any question that Rangers need to have a long-term strategy change. And if they're sitting around the table thinking we'll just do the same thing that's got us here, that's not going to work. They do need external voices. The prospect of more executive changes, whether that's in the form of a sporting director of football, to kind of on the table. That's a positive, but it's going to take a long time to probably feel the results of that external review, isn't it?
I think we've got a number of pieces on the site. We've spoke about it, a number of videos looking at how the boardroom structure could change. Obviously, came up at the EGM and John Gilligan's speech. I think we agree that it's the right thing for the club to move in that different direction. It feels like a new era, obviously, with Fraser Thornton coming in as chairman, Patrick Stewart as chief exec. This is their first big call, but as you say, it's a longer term thing. They're not here just to try and fix this season. They're here to try and lay the foundations for, as Patrick Stewart continually said, multiple successes. Winning one league since going back to top flight is not acceptable. Winning a couple of cups is not acceptable. They have to change that. To change that, they can't keep making the same mistakes, and that's the pattern that they've got into so often. Now, ultimately, what happens out on that pitch defines the mood of everything. That shapes everything. But if the structure and the processes and the people are not in place and behind what's happening out there, Rangers are never going to get anywhere. So my only not a concern is we have heard this before. Patrick Stewart's not the first figure to sit in a media briefing in this stadium and say, I'll go and do a review, we'll go and look at things and we'll change. Ultimately, those changes, whatever has been done previously, has not worked. Fingers crossed, whatever he finds, whatever he feels needs addressed, hopefully that turns out to be the right thing for Rangers all.
I guess the fact that it's external probably offers a little bit of hope of that kind of separation as opposed to maybe what's happened before. There's no doubt that the situation they inherited, and we've not got time to go through it all just now, but we've been speaking about it for months, was a really broken situation, and there's a lot of people who are accountable for why Rangers got into that position. Patrick Stewart's former club, Manchester United, publicly backed the manager last summer, and he didn't last very long into the season. So I don't think this is a complete, to use his phrase, cast iron guarantee that regardless of results, Clement is going to stay. I think it's trying to move away from what's happened in the future, create a far bigger infrastructure around the manager, which needs to happen. But there's a quote I always go back to from, I think it was a sporting director in Germany at one point, who says you can plan 5 years ahead as long as you win at the weekend. Mm-hmm. And part of something that was covered in Patrick Stewart's press conference was discussion was that topic of fans are angry, there's actually apathy setting in. You had the Rangers Supporters Association putting out a statement after the Dundee game, and he did kind of acknowledge that, Patrick Stewart, in saying that, look, I know this maybe isn't the popular decision at the moment, or it would be the easy decision to be reactive. So I guess while the Ineos and Manchester United comparison shows that this isn't completely secure, it is a big statement early in his Rangers tenure. He said he's not here to win a popularity contest, and this won't be the most popular decision at the moment. Ultimately, he's paid to make decisions he will kind of live or die by at the top of the club, and that's what he's doing early on.
It certainly is, and as you say, it's not one that's going to, even from the brief reaction that we've seen after putting the various bits on the site, it's not overwhelmingly positive in terms of Patrick making that decision, or the squad, or the manager. We know what the Rangers fans are feeling right now. We're coming up to 10 years since a regime change. Dave King, John Gallagher and Paul Murray coming in. It's hard to think of a time in that 10 years where the Rangers fans have felt almost as disengaged. Made this point after Thursday night. There was no... Yes, there was a bit of anger towards the manager at the end, but that away end was really, really flat.
Apathy, isn't it?
It wasn't a typical Rangers away end, and that's a big problem. Really interesting to see the crowd here tomorrow. I think the crowd against Fraserburgh in the Scottish Cup will be really indicative as well. People not having paid for that on the season ticket, so that's something they have to guard against. They have to find a way to re-engage the support. Backing the manager doesn't strike me as the obvious way to do that, but everything else that they're putting in place, they have to find a way to try and get the fans back on board. And
just finally, transfers. Obviously, that was kind of the initial what Clement said that Patrick Stewart was going to discuss, and he again went into speaking about the wider context, not looking for short-term fixes, trying to work sustainably, the January window not being where clubs would look to do a lot of business, but there's also no doubting that Rangers need defenders. We've previously reported that they're looking at a centre-back. Patrick Stewart said that's been the case since December. 1 or 2, more than 3 or 4 was the line in terms of incomings. In terms of outgoings, he said Rangers will not sell any players who are contributing on the pitch, and that was quite an important distinction.
That's quite a short list at present, it has to be said.
But the main name being Hamza Gaman, Rangers want him to stay they want to sell him at one point, of course they will, because that's how they have to act as a football club. But Patrick Stewart insistent that time will not be in January. So incomings will be opportunistic, I think it's fair to say. He highlighted the 3 different types of players Rangers are looking for, which you can remind me is, again, we've reported this previously, but young players, Scottish players, and a few experienced players to try and round up the squad as well. So while it's not going to be a case of Rangers spending a lot of money, they may move to bring 1 or 2 players in. And again, an important distinction that is not the manager's players. The manager has a veto, the manager has a say. But Rangers squad has been in such a mess because it's been made up by so many people in the past. That can't happen. It has to be about the club first, and not what the manager initially maybe wants.
Sounds good in theory. If the decision is then made at some point that Clement is not the manager, and you have a new manager here to start next season, if you went and spent a bit of money in January and you signed a couple of players and he suddenly says, actually, I don't fancy them, you then find yourself in a difficult position. So I understand they're saying it's the club that's signing players, not the manager, but the manager's always going to have such a huge say in it. So I think they have to be really careful. It's a real balancing act to be struck in terms of how they do this window. not a surprise that there's not going to be a lot of players coming in. I think you look at the situation, there's no point. I spoke to Derek about this in the show the other day. Rangers are going to finish second. They're not going to win the Europa League. Is the squad good enough to go and win the Scottish Cup as it stands? If they get a centre half, then potentially. I just don't see the need to go and spend a lot of money and do too much forward planning. So I think the way that Patrick outlined what Rangers will do in the window, again, it's to be expected. They do need a centre half. They do need to try and offload a couple of those players that aren't contributing. We know who they are. We know the type of salaries that they're on and how big a drain that is on Rangers in a football and financial sense. I think if they could do that and move a couple on like they did in the summer, that would represent a bit more of a success rather than what they do in terms of incomings.
Yeah, I think in terms of what they've done so far with transfers, the question is also, as a manager getting the best out of these players? Is his style of play, especially away from home, going to get the best out of these players? I think the theory is sound and some of the building blocks and infrastructure is in place for that. Clement obviously has a veto. It's much changed from the 2023 window. The average age has come down, which it has to, because that's one of the reasons that, again, Rangers have got themselves in such a mess. But I guess to just round up, Chris, everything comes back to the fact that, again, as was mentioned at some point in the briefing, Rangers have to win every week, and when they don't win every week, there's going to be crisis. And this is a club that, over the course of the past 2 years, have probably spent more time in crisis than they have out of crisis, in all honesty. And they've got 3 home games coming up. The Fraserburgh game, as you say, might not be the busiest Ibrox has been all season. They go away to Manchester United. Ironically, you're probably looking at the Manchester United game and holding out more hopes of a positive result than when Rangers travel to Dundee United, I think, the weekend after that. There's so many games that the narrative's going to continually change, and the question will be, if results don't change for Clement, when does this become, I guess, beyond reproach or beyond the topics or the guidelines that Patrick Stewart has outlined today? A continuation of the fact that it's never quiet at Rangers, and this is a big decision early on for him to make. Patrick Stewart's outlined a lot of the infrastructure that should lead Rangers to not be in this situation again, and as ever, I guess the proof's going to be in what happens and what we see over the next number of months.
And what we see over the next 90 minutes, you know what the reaction, if it doesn't go well here tomorrow, you know what the reaction is going to be. You know Patrick Stewart's comments will then be cast up and brought up again, so he could really do with the manager and the team putting on a performance to get the result tomorrow. Unfortunately for Clement, the situation he's in, he could go and win the next 10 games. The first one he doesn't win, the same questions are going to come back. That's the position that he's painted himself in. Rangers, they put themselves in that corner. It's a long way to get out of it, regardless of the backing that he's received from the chairman and received from the chief exec. Ultimately, the Rangers fans, their voice will continue to carry so much weight. So he may have 200% backing of the board. He's got a long way to go to win over all these doubters and critics within the support. That has to start tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it's a long way to that, but as you say, lots to discuss. You can read every word Patrick Stewart had to say, part 1 and part 2, in the comment section below. We'll be back tomorrow to cover Rangers against St Johnstone, who sit bottom of the Scottish Premiership currently, before another busy couple of weeks in the world of Rangers. Until then, thanks for joining us. Speak to you soon. Bye for now.